Hey everybody, it's me, Jesse, and today my camera is not working. I don't know why. It's working on Discord, but it's not working with OBS, which I use for streaming. So I tried restarting my computer, which is why I'm a few minutes late. Apologies for being late, but I can't get it to work with OBS, and I'm not really sure what to do. Um, it just doesn't detect that there is a camera. Yeah, I can. Hmm. Hey, it works. I just clicked around somewhat randomly in the settings and that worked. All right, cool. So often that does make things work in these streams when I just try some things randomly and I'm not sure if they'll work and they end up working. So anyway, it is working now. So you can see my handsome face. Actually not, it's probably sweaty. It's quite warm where I'm at and pretty humid. I have a dehumidifier set up in my basement office here, but I turn it off for the streams because it's pretty noisy. So it's probably gonna see the sweat on my forehead. So you just cover up the bottom of your screen if it gets too shiny there for you. But today we're gonna go back to something that we couldn't get to work earlier in one of the earlier streams, and we're gonna get it to work this time because I had an idea yesterday, and I tested it out right before the stream, and it works. So we're gonna do it. So let me just give you a quick update in case you didn't see the previous stream. It was a while ago. It might have been like stream 2 or 3 or something like that. But we're getting some data with GraphQL. We're actually calling some custom Lambda functions in AWS. When I say a custom Lambda function, I just mean a serverless function. In this case, it's written in JavaScript, although you can write it in different languages. But we were having an issue where we could get what were some of the communities. So the database has a type of an entity called communities, right? And there are different types of communities. And one of our Lambda functions, we pass in a zip code and we get um, the parish type of community. And that one was working. But in another Lambda function, we pass in a zip code and we get the group type of communities. And we were getting an error. It was coming back null and it was messing up our code. So we just commented it out. But you can see now I uncommented this query and now we're actually getting the data. So we can see the data if I pull up. I had to restart, so I lost all my windows. Uh, I didn't lose them. I just lost track of them. So let me find which one. This is it. I'm gonna pull this over on the screen. Oh, I should start my server first, right? So yarn start is the command we use. This was built with create react app, and it comes pre-built with the command start. So npm run start or yarn start will load up your app. So let's wait for the server to start here, the local server. And it should take us to the correct page to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Hey, John's here. How's it going, John? All right, cool. So here's our page. This, if you've joined us for previous streams, then this will look kind of familiar. But here, let's go to components and let's find our, let's see, edit ad set component. And we should see, we have a lot of state here, but we should see our state change when we enter in a zip code. Now we are making multiple calls here. Does it change? So we could see we're still getting, like we had the parishes, right, which is one type of community. But we're also getting, let me go to network, show you, we're getting this back from list all communities, and we're getting it in JSON format. So it's all just one big JSON string, right? But we are saving that JSON string, or we're parsing that JSON string, and then saving it to groups, which set communities list state. Maybe that's local. Yep, that's local. I was looking in the wrong component. So let's go back here to our components, and let's find our behavior component, our behavior form. Now we can see that we should have communities, selected communities. Where's our state? There we are. We should have groups now. And we don't have any global groups that have come back. Now, the problem that we had before is that I'm on the development environment. So we have an environment called dev on the back end in AWS, and it didn't have any communities there. There were no demo communities, and that was why the query wasn't working, because there was no data. But now we have some data, so we have these local groups, right? So now we have some data to work with, and you could see we're getting groups from pretty far away from our zip code. And that's because in the dev environment, we don't have any groups that are actually local to the 90210 zip code. All right, so we need to get, we're basically getting the closest groups to that zip code, which still happen to be pretty far away. In fact, one of these groups is, I believe, in the Philippines. So this one is in the Philippines. So it's pretty far away. Now, if we were on the production version of this, we would probably get some groups that were a lot closer to the zip code. All right, so for now, we're just going to work with the groups that we have. And what I'd like to do is add in some things. So let me bring over our design. All right, so our designs have a little bit more than what we're used to working with. It has a toggle here for parishes and groups. We may add this today. I'm not sure if I want to actually add this today, but what I do want to add is some type of display for the groups. So the designs actually don't really show how this is supposed to work. So it still shows the parishes. So we're going to use our imagination here and come up with a way to display this that's going to be good for the user. So here's what I'm thinking. Feel free to put in your comments into the chat. But I'm thinking that we're going to assume at first that both of these boxes are checked. If we have time, maybe we'll add in these boxes. But for now, what we're going to do is display the parishes first, and then we're going to display the groups right after. The next step to make it a little bit better in terms of the user interface is we may add a heading that says parishes and then another heading that says groups, so you could see the difference between it. That's the plan. I think we can add in, we can leave a lot of our logic the same. So the logic that actually saves these groups is going to use the same, like the ID of the group. I think that'll work. Now the group IDs are a random string, so it's not going to be readable. So we may have to change up a little bit of how we do this just to make it human readable. But we'll worry about that once we get there. First step is actually just displaying this data. So let me move this. I'm going to move this off to my other screen for now so we can just focus on the code. So we know now that in state, we have groups and we have some data for our groups. So we have both global groups and local groups, and we have some data now. The data is not exactly in the same format as we have for our parishes, but I don't think that's going to matter. And let me show you where we're displaying this. If I can get to there. Oh, I passed it up. There it is. So right now we have this select input, which we're getting from Material UI. The value of the select is going to be all the selected communities. That doesn't need to change. Our onChange handler doesn't need to change. But what does need to change is this. And in fact, it doesn't necessarily need to change. We just need to duplicate it. So my plan is this. We're going to duplicate this. And instead of looking at the communities list state, we're going to look at our groups. So let's see how we can do this. I forgot the name already of what we were saving it to. Communities list state dot groups. And then after that, we'll start with local groups since we don't have any global groups right now. So communities list state dot groups. And then we're going to go dot local groups dot map. And I just realized we're not doing any filtering for deleted groups or communities, so we may have to filter for that. At this point, there's not really a lot of like deleted. Well, we could check our data here and see. You know what? I think that check is happening on the back end. Since we're using a custom Lambda function, that check is happening on the back end. So I don't think we have to worry about that now, which is nice. Nice that we don't have to do that check on the front end. It saves us from getting more data that we don't need. Okay. All right, so we need to change up some of our values here. So I'm going to change this from parish to group. Uh-oh. I clicked. How did I do that? There we are. I clicked a button, the wrong button, because I switched back and forth between PC and Mac. Evidently, the keys that I hit hide everything on all your desktops. But if you hit it again, it brings them back. So good to know. What I meant to do was this and say group just to keep things straight. And we do have a group ID. That's the same. So that'll work fine. And we also, I believe, have a group name. Wonderful. Now what we need to change is this church address city name value. We don't have that. What we have is I don't think we have an address. So we're actually not going to have any secondary value because we aren't currently getting back any data about the address of the groups. All right, which we may have to change that at some point because that may be useful to have, but that's a back-end change and is beyond the scope of this stream currently. All right, so the first test of this is just, let's just save it and see if we get an error. Oops, I forgot I had this on my other screen. And you can see, hey, we have the groups here. So we have St. Louis Women's Group, Bay Area Young Adult Group, Tabella Team. All right, so let's just click it and see what we get. And see, we get this ID. So I said this is going to be a little bit odd because we're getting IDs. So this may require some changes to how we display this since our IDs aren't readable. Like you can see here, these are more readable. So we may have to change how we display this, which I wanted to change that anyway. But for now, I think this is fine. Cool. So if we have this, let's try to update this just to see if we can add this group and if the logic still works when we add the group. Okay, so I'm going to save changes. I'm going to look at our network response. So it says it was updated successfully. Message success. Awesome. Update advertisement. Let's check our communities. All right, let's refresh and see if we are displaying any communities, if that actually worked. All right, cool. So it actually worked for displaying communities, and you can see we're displaying the IDs. So I was correct in thinking that, hey, our logic works. Is my camera frozen? No, it's not. It looked like it was frozen for a minute, but I think it's working now. All right, so we do have some problems. So as before, we kind of took a shortcut and just used the ID instead of the actual name. Now we do have an issue because no one's going to know what this means. So I think I had said that maybe I would like to have changed the list, maybe add some headings, but I think it's more important that we have the actual name. So let's try that now. First, let's see what we have in our state and see if we even have the name. All right, so in behavior form, we're getting back communities. And we're getting the community ID and the ID, but we're not getting the name yet. So let's see if we get the name. We need to go up one level to our AddEditAdSet. And we need to see where we're getting communities. And let's see if we can get the name. So I believe that's where this is coming from. If we add in name and save it, we should be able to just see quickly if we're getting the name. Let's refresh. Oh, now we got nothing. We've got nothing now. What happened? Oh, I know what happened. We had this error before. So communities, we need to do community name. Remember, this wasn't working before, but I told my backend engineer Bruno about it, and he said he was going to check it out. So let's see if he was able to fix that. Hey, he was able to fix this. So now you can see we have, okay, interesting. So he was able to fix it for some of them, so, but not for all of them. So it looks like maybe he fixed it, and then when he added in the groups to the development database, it actually did make the connections correctly. And that worked, but it's for some reason it's not working for all communities. So this is fine. We can still deal with this. We're just going to have to display the name only for groups right now. And I'll have to get back to him and say that we're still not getting that community connection in the database. We are using GraphQL to get this data. We've got a question from John. It says, to change the ID into a readable name, would that cost another server call? Well, actually, not another server call. We are going like another level deep in our schema in GraphQL, and we're grabbing. So let me go over the schema for now. So right now we're getting an advertisement. The advertisements are linked to this a community connector. All right, and the connector is in a GraphQL schema, this will be easier if I just show you the whole schema. All right, so advertisement is linked to communities through this community advertisement connection. So if you want to link something in a many-to-many relationship, meaning a community can be connected to many advertisements, and an advertisement can be connected to many communities. So a many-to-many relationship. In the schema, we can create a connector type, and this is our connector type that connects advertisements and communities. So what we can do is we get the connector, and then we can get all this data that's on the connector. And then we can also go another level deep and actually get the community and all the data that's on the community. So I had asked Bruno to either fix this connector or add the name to our schema. And actually what we could do is, I don't know whether he fixed the connector or he added the name, but I haven't updated the schema. So let's, when changes happen on the back end in Amplify, if you want to see those changes in your local project, you can do Amplify Pull. Let's do an Amplify Pull. I haven't done it for a while, just to make sure we have all the correct schema data. Sure you would like to continue? Yes, I'm sure. This will just take a minute to get the changes, but at least we'll know for sure, because if Bruno's managed to add in name to this connector type, then that'll solve our problem. Otherwise, we can get around this by only displaying name if it exists. Otherwise, we'll fall back to the ID or the community ID and display our community ID. So as this is happening, we'll probably see this changing, which we already saw our scroll position change. So there's some changes happening in this file. Cool. All right, so we've pulled the latest changes, and we can see here just a summary of the changes. It looks like there's no changes. So if we go to community advertisements, it looks like, yeah, we don't really have any changes. I don't see name on here now. All right, so that was just a kind of a quick tutorial on how connect many-to-many connections work in the schema for the GraphQL schema for AWS Amplify. So now that we have this data, at least for our groups, we can use it in our behavior form. Well, let's make sure. So we're getting it here. Let's see if we're getting it in our behavior form. So we can see it here in our behavior form props. Yep, so we do have it. So if we look in our props for behavior form, we go to communities.community.name, then we should have that. All right, so let's go. Where are we at? Oop, I'm in the wrong component. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay, so we're going communities.map, and then for our name, where we at? Community.community.id. We're gonna add in. Let's do some logic in here, and let's say if community.community, and let's see dot name, then we want to display community dot community dot name. Otherwise, we want to display what we have been displaying. Let's see if it works. Oops, hit the wrong button again. There we are. If it works, I'll explain what I'm doing there in case it's not clear. Cool, it worked. So now we're displaying Tabella team instead of the ID, and we see here on St. Mark's, Venice, we are still displaying that ID. That's our fallback value. Okay. Once we get the back end sorted out, this will automatically, we won't have to change any code. This will automatically display the name. So that's good. Now, in this section here, we're still showing the ID. There's no, in terms of the selector, there's not really a way around this right now. At least I don't think there's a way around this. We can take a look at the code and see if we can come up with something. Yeah, let's take a look at the code. I remember the last time we tried to do this, I couldn't figure out a way to do this easily. But it's a different day now, so maybe my brain will think of something, or maybe when somebody that watching will think of something. John has a comment here. Does your project have access to the schema through a GraphQL IDE in development mode? Yeah, so you can actually do that. I forget the command, but there's an Amplify CLI command that lets you run a local GraphQL instance. The problem with that is I wouldn't have any data in it, so I would have to run it locally and then load it with data as well. I think there's a way to automatically populate it with test data, but I found that seemed it was just too much work for me to get it set up. It might not be a bad idea to actually set that up one day, so I'm not really making calls to the database, but I make so few calls as I'm developing this that I'm not worried about it right now. Like compared to all the calls coming into the app from real users, it's just such a small amount that I'm not worried about it. But if you wanted to work completely locally, like let's say you didn't have an internet connection, you wanted to work on this, then you could run the whole, basically the whole Amplify backend can be run locally. And like I said, the only issue is you just need to worry about what data you have. I'm gonna take a drink real quick. It's just super hot and humid right now where I'm at. It's 82 degrees Fahrenheit where I am, which depending on where you are, that may or may not seem very warm, but I'm not used to the heat yet. Okay. All right. Oh, I said I was going to explain what I just did here. So let me explain this. This is a JavaScript ternary. So we're just checking to see if this is true. If it's true, we do this. If it's not true, we do this. Right? So that's what this question mark and colon is. It's just like an if else statement. So where you would see this first part, that's the if, and then this part is the else. All right, let's look at our logic for our little chips here in our select function. So right now, we're getting this data from selected communities. Yeah. So for each selected community, we're using this value. All right, so right now our selected communities is an array. Oh, I remember why we couldn't get this to work. The value only takes an array of strings. That's why we have to use the IDs. So what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking that we're going to have to leave this as is for now. And what we can do then is maybe put in, maybe let's put in some the secondary text just to make it a little bit more clear. For now, at least, let's add a secondary. Secondary text is going to be group. Well, let's do it like this. We're going to add in a string literal. And our string literal is going to say ID. and then, or I'm sorry, not a string literal, a template literal is what the syntax is called when you use the little backticks. It lets you put in JavaScript right into a string. And let's do .id. Let's save that, and then if you haven't already guessed it, you could see in a minute what this is going to do. Oops, let's type in. So now Tabella team has this ID of this. So if we were really confused about what this meant, now we can see that here. There was also something else I wanted to do in my last stream, and I said we were going to do it, and then I totally forgot about it. And that was make this select input take up the full width, because you could see it kind of cuts off here. So I want it just by default to be full width. So let's see how we can do that. Menu props. I don't think we have any style right now on this. So let's see if we can add a style. Let's see. Let's just try with 100% for now and see if that works. That would be the easiest solution. May or may not work. Try it out. Nope, and it looks like we can't do that. Unexpected token, oh, equals. It definitely doesn't work if I type it in wrong. We don't want an equals, we want a colon. All right, so it looks like that really didn't do anything. Let's inspect it. Oh, goodness. And this, I just realized now that the font for this is super small. Let's see. John says, do you need the two instances for the names? Could the ID version just place an icon beside the named block? Map both into the same elements. Let me think about this for a second. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean? Well, let me go back to that since I already have the screen up. Let's see what we need. Form. I'm gonna make this long enough so I could see what's blocking this select from being full width. Oh, okay. I think it's the form control that's actually blocking that. But we'll see. Maybe it is. Oh, we have a max width of 300. Let's see if we set width to 100%, if that changes anything. Cool, that works. Width 100% on the form control. All right, let's see where that's at. So classes form control. Let's go back and change that. Let's take out the max width and we'll put in a, where's our styles? So our behavior form style is going to have form control. Let's take out our max width here. And let's see, first of all, if that's enough to just change it. No, that's not enough to change it. So we'll take out the max width and then we'll add, I don't want to make everything max width right now. So what I'm going to do is say, we're going to turn this into an array. And then our second part of the array is going to be a JavaScript object. And our width here is going to be 100%. Oops. Yeah, save that. I didn't mean to close it, but I accidentally hit the wrong key. I'm just hitting the wrong key constantly. Is this not going to let us do this? Oh, I'm still in React Native land in my mind here. I would be able to do this in React Native, but that's not how it works. Oops. So what I can do instead is add a style. And the style would override the class. All right, now that should work. Cool. So now that's should be wide enough. Yep, that's wide. Now we can actually see, we can almost see everything. Let's see, some of the names are quite long, but I think it's wide enough that we should be able to see most of the data. All right, awesome. Let's save this now before we work on anything else. Get status. Oh, well, we've modified quite a lot since we brought in the updates from Amplify. Let's do git commit. Or let's do git add first, and then we'll do git commit with the M flag to add a message, a new feature, add ability to connect ads to groups. Let's say local groups. All right, so we don't have any data for the global groups now, so we could add in what will probably work for the global groups, but I'm really hesitant to actually add that in, even though it probably will work, because we don't have any data, so I can't test it. So I don't want the app to break if we end up getting global groups on the back end. Then the app could break without us even knowing. And then also ability to connect ads to local groups, and then update Amplify files. We're going to push that up. Cool. John says he was gonna try out that class style array. Yeah, don't try out the array thing because it doesn't work. In React Native, the way you would do, I was thinking basically like I would put in a style, and you would do something like this. Like in the style, you would do styles dot form control, and then you would have an array like this, and that would work in React Native. And it might even, I don't know, it might even work in React. Like if we just made form control equal to an array, like styles would be an array of styles, right? That might work, but not exactly how it is supposed to work the way we have this project set up. All right, cool. So we have successfully added in groups, and I think let's see. I do have a meeting coming up in about a half an hour. I don't think that's really long enough to add in like a whole new feature. So I may just, if there's no more questions, I might just kind of wrap up the stream at this point. So don't want to try, I don't really want to try to add in those. Let me pull this over so you could see here we have these checkboxes that we could add in, but I don't really see the need for the checkboxes right now. It seems easy enough just to scroll down through the list to add in the groups. I could see it being more of an issue if we had a lot of parishes showing up for a given zip code, and it was like the list was really long. But for now, I think this will be fine. It's functional. It works. We can add in local groups. So, I mean, I said that's, to be honest, it's a pretty big update in terms of functionality that we can now add in these local groups. So that's like a whole nother section of the app that can now have advertisements added to them. All right. All right, cool. So if anybody has any questions, you got, a minute or so to put your question in the chat. You can also add your question in as a comment, and I will get to it later on. I've been thinking, so for those of you who have been watching my streams for a while, I've kind of been thinking of maybe trying to stream again on the Free Code Camp YouTube channel. I wanted to try streaming on my own channel just to see if I could fit it into my schedule regularly. And for the last few weeks, I've been able to do at least one stream a week, usually more. So I'm confident now that I can fit in at least one stream per week into my schedule. And so I'm thinking maybe it would be good to say, at least one day a week at a certain time to do a stream on Free Code Camp. I'm going to have to connect with the people from Free Code Camp again and see if that's okay, if they were still open to me streaming on their channel. Let me know what you all think about that, though, either in the chat or in the comments. It's definitely a different experience. The Free Code Camp channel has over 3 million subscribers. So it's a chance for me to help even more people. So I like that, but also the chat experience then becomes a little bit difficult to handle. The stream itself becomes maybe like half coding and half just answering questions. So it's a little bit different format. I mean, I can do both. I can do some streams on my channel where it's a little bit more laid back, and I could do some on the Free Code Camp channel. But yeah, I'm not 100% decided one way or another. So I would appreciate your input on that. And even if I do decide to do it, I'm still not 100% sure that Free Code Camp would want me to do it anymore. I'm assuming they do because they always seemed appreciative of my efforts in live coding. So I don't think that has changed. And you never know. They might have a different strategy for their channel and not want the live stuff. So I'm not saying it's going to happen for sure, but it's a possibility, and I might want to do that again. I got to prepare myself for the wildness of the live chats in when you have hundreds of people. Like right now on my own channel, I usually have less than 10 people watching at any given time. On the Free Code Camp, we would have hundreds of people watching, so it's a totally different vibe, but it's fun. And let's see. All right, John had said Free Code Camp tends to get more visitors, more questions. John likes it being more relaxed, but then it's nice to have a few more questions. Yeah, it would be. To be honest, I would probably like the stream to maybe have less than 100 people in the stream. So, somewhere between 50 and 100 people in the stream seems to be like enough questions that we can have a nice question and answer session. But also, it doesn't get so congested that I can't really read the chat. The problem that happens is that there's so many things going on in the chat. It makes it hard to keep track of who's asking what. So we'll see how it goes. I think Free Code Camp has like the super chat feature, which adds like some moderation abilities and things like that. So I might do it, but in any case, I'm gonna keep doing streams. It's just a matter of what channel I do the streams on. But it was a good stream today. Mission accomplished for what we wanted to do today. And yeah, I'll probably stream again. What day is it? Is it Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday. um, so yeah, there's a couple more days left in the week, so I'll probably do another stream at some point this week. It'll probably be this project, but we do have a React Native app and a React Native web app that I can switch to and work on as well. So it may or may not be this project. We may add some entirely new features to this project now that the ads are, basically, ready, ready to go. But until then, thank you all so much for watching and have a great day.